Parents, what's the most blatant favoritism you've ever seen from your own mom or dad? I was 22 when I moved into a studio apartment above a laundromat in Portland, juggling 2 part-time shifts at a coffee shop and a full-course load at the state university. My parents had set aside a modest college fund for both me and my younger sister, Maya, but the money vanished after Dad's unexpected surgery left the family with a mountain of medical bills. While I scraped together scholarships, took out loans, and survived on ramen and overtime, Mom somehow found cash to send Maya to a prestigious dance conservatory in New York. She stayed there for a semester before deciding the atmosphere wasn't right and returned home. Her tuition bill already paid in full. The conservatory cost more than my entire freshman year tuition, and yet Maya spent the next few months bouncing between expensive hobbies. First a high-end photography kit, then a subscription to a boutique yoga studio, then a collection of vintage vinyl records that never got played. I graduated with honors, landed a junior analyst position at a tech firm, and spent the next 3 years paying off every loan while living in a cramped apartment shared with 3 roommates. Maya, meanwhile, remained rent-free in our parents' basement, her days filled with the latest passion project, a fitness influencer Instagram account that never gained traction, a failed attempt at launching a podcast, and a series of online courses she bought but never finished. Mom would often drop off groceries, pay for her gym membership, and praise her for exploring her potential, while I received occasional texts reminding me to think about the family's future. By the time I turned 29, I was a senior consultant at a reputable firm, finally debt-free, and living in a 1-bedroom loft with a view of the river. Maya, now 27, still lived at home, her latest venture being a line of handcrafted candles she sold on Etsy for a few dollars each. Mom's calls grew more frequent, each one peppered with comments about how successful children should support their parents and links to articles about wealth preservation. I sensed a request forming on the horizon. One Saturday morning, the doorbell rang before I had even finished my first cup of coffee. I opened the door to find Mom stepping inside without waiting for an invitation, her eyes sweeping over my living room as if she were appraising a property. "Nice setup you've got here," she said, running her fingertips along the edge of my coffee table. "Must be doing pretty well for yourself." Maya followed, flopping onto my couch, scrolling through her phone, and barely muttering a greeting. I invited them to sit, offered coffee, and tried to keep the conversation light. Mom soon shifted to the real reason for the visit. "Alex, we've been thinking about the house," she began. "Your dad and I want to downsize, and we could really use a little help with the moving costs. Maya's thinking about expanding her candle business, and she needs a bit of capital to buy supplies in bulk." She glanced at Maya, who nodded eagerly, still not looking up from her screen. I felt the familiar knot tighten in my stomach. I had spent years building my own stability, sacrificing weekends, holidays, and any semblance of a lavish lifestyle to stay afloat. Now they were asking me to subsidize a venture that, in my view, lacked a clear path to profit, while my own savings were earmarked for a down payment on a place of my own. I took a breath and replied, "I'm happy to help with the move if you need a hand packing or driving the truck, but I can't afford to front money for a business that hasn't shown any revenue yet." Mom's smile faltered. "But we're family," she said. "You're the successful one. It's only fair you share a little." Maya finally looked up, eyes bright. "I just need a few thousand to get the candles into stores. I'll pay you back once it starts selling." I could see the hope in her voice, but also the certainty that repayment was unlikely. I explained that my own financial goals were tied to buying a condo, and that lending money now would jeopardize that plan. I offered instead to help Maya draft a simple business plan, connect her with a local small business advisor, and review her budget to see where she could cut costs. Mom's expression softened a fraction, but the tension lingered. We spent the next hour sorting through moving boxes, labeling items, and loading the truck. I drove Mom and Maya to the new smaller house they picked out, helped them unload, and stayed long enough to make sure everything was in place. When I finally left, I felt a mix of exhaustion and relief. I had set a boundary, offered practical support, and avoided enabling a venture that felt more like a hobby than a sustainable business. That evening, I sat down with my own budget spreadsheet, reaffirmed my savings target, and scheduled a meeting with a mortgage broker for the following week. I realized that saying no didn't make me selfish. It protected the future I'd worked so hard to build. The lesson stuck. Love and family obligation don't require emptying your own reserves to fund someone else's uncertain dreams. True support means offering guidance, time, and honest limits, so everyone can grow without one person bearing the cost of another's indecision.